This is the new 2024 Maserati GranCabrio. It looks good, it sounds good, it drives well, and it's too expensive. How expensive, you ask? Well, this one has a sticker price of around $230,000, which is huge money, and yet this car is not worth huge money. Today I'll review the GranCabrio and explain why, and show you all of this car's quirks and features. Before we get started, are you ready for your next cool car? Sell your enthusiast car on Cars and Bids. Trading in your car to dealers means you aren't getting market value for your car, leaving you with less cash for your next fun car. Just look at our recent sales of these cool cars compared to current trade-in value. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is the trade-in offer, and this is the Cars and Bids result. Get started now on carsandbids.com. Sell on Cars and Bids and join the best community to sell your enthusiast car. All right, time for the quirks and features of the GranCabrio, starting with probably its craziest quirk, the convertible top process. In this car, it's not a button or a switch like every other convertible. Instead, you go into this center screen, you press the button marked Cabrio, and then an image of the car appears on the screen. And from there, you swipe your finger across the image to raise or lower the top. If you want the top up, you swipe this way and then just leave your finger there, and then as you can see, the top goes up just like in a normal convertible with a button, except you're swiping on a screen. Seems totally crazy. You want the top to go the other direction? Well, just do the opposite. Swipe in the other direction and then the top goes down, all thanks to your swiping on a screen. It is certainly a very different experience than what you'd expect with a switch or a button like the other convertibles, but that's the brave new world of modern tech and screens. But anyway, before we get into the rest of the quirks, and there are surprisingly many in this car, before we move on, let's talk basics. The new GranCabrio, there are two versions. There's this one, the Trofeo, which has a twin turbocharged V6 at about 540 horsepower. It starts around $205,000. Or you can step up to the all-electric model, the Folgore, which has 820 horsepower and costs only $2,000 more. It starts around $207,000. Now, in some cars, you really want the powertrain, the engine to feel that feel and hear that noise. But in this car, that extra 300 horsepower might be worth it. More on this powertrain when I get behind the wheel a little later. Now, this car is also offered in the coupe body style, the new Maserati GranTurismo, which I've already reviewed, and that car is offered with an additional version, a base level model called the Modena, which has around 485 horsepower. That version is not offered on the GranCabrio. It's only the Trofeo with its 540 horses, and the convertible model costs around $13,000 more than a corresponding GranTurismo coupe. It also weighs about 250 pounds more because of all the convertible top stuff, bringing the total weight of this car to around 4,300 pounds. It isn't light, but it does 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, which is impressively quick for a car like this. But anyway, next we move back to the full load of quirks and features, and again, there are quite a few in this car, and we go back to that lower screen in the center control stack. You have two screens here. The upper one is sort of a traditional infotainment system. I'll cover that in a second, but the lower one incorporates a lot of regular vehicle controls that are usually buttons and switches. Now they're a screen. Now, one great control on this screen is this one. It's marked Scarf, a little arrow coming out of the seat, and that delivers sort of a warm air blow while you're driving around with the roof down. On a cooler day, if you don't want to put the roof down, well, now you can warm your neck while you're driving. It's a great feature. Mercedes-Benz has had it for years, called Air Scarf, and it's cool to see it in this car too. Now, you'll also notice that this lower screen in the center control stack is your climate control. So you adjust your air temperature, your airflow, air positioning, all that stuff, and your typical climate controls are here. But this screen also does a lot more than just that. You also have seating controls here, not your regular move it forward, back, backward, up, down, but your memory settings and a few other ancillary controls like lumbar support and the seat back edges. Another control in here is the axle lifter. You can see it here. You push this button and of course the car raises up just a little bit to give you a little bit more clearance to go over like steep curves so you don't scrape the front end. Maybe more interestingly, also in here is your headlight controls. There's no switch to the side of the steering wheel. Instead, you tap here and you adjust the headlights on, off, parking lights, auto, whatever, in this screen. In fact, you even use this screen to open the glove box. You tap here, the corner of the screen, and the glove box falls open, so you don't even have a traditional glove box latch like in most other cars. In fact, you can even use this screen to adjust what's being shown in this circular clock display above at the center of the dashboard. You can choose between a clock, a G meter, and various other information displays here, which is kind of cool. If you choose pedals, it shows exactly how much you're on the accelerator or the brake while you're driving along. And if you choose clock, you even have 3 separate options for the clock face design. Sort of a classic, a sport, and then a design face, which is cooler and more modern. So this lower screen can change what you see on the upper circular screen above the big main center screen. As you can see, screens are a bit of a theme of this car. Now, I actually like a lot of the functionality in this lower screen, including changing that clock face look, but there's some stuff in here that I really don't like for example, the volume control. Over on the passenger side, it's this little slider that you slide your finger up and down. The problem with it is if you miss by even a little bit, well, you're not adjusting the volume as opposed to a simple volume dial like in most cars. I also don't really love the buttons for the gear selection, park, reverse, neutral, and drive, which don't seem very performance car, just simple buttons in between the center screens. They work okay, but they're not cool. Now, the good news in this center control stack is that the infotainment screen itself is pretty excellent. It's large, it's responsive to your touch, and it's very intuitive and easy to use. It has its roots in the latest technology from Chrysler. Obviously, that's part of the Maserati Stellantis family of vehicles and brands. And frankly, the Chrysler infotainment technology is pretty good. They've refined it and improved it greatly over the years, and it's responsive, intuitive, and that shines through here. It's been adapted for the GranCabrio, but it is very similar technology, and that's a good thing because it works well. Now, another nice benefit carried over from Chrysler is the audio controls on the steering wheel. It's a great feature. They're behind the steering wheel, so within easy reach of your fingers while you're driving along. You have volume up, down here, and then a button in the center to mute. And over on the other side, up, down to change the stereo track or the music that you're listening to. It's really cool to have the steering wheel audio controls here, but also kind of hidden, so the other steering wheel buttons can take care of other functions. And that way you don't have to use the annoying volume slider over on the passenger side of the center control stack. Now, another thing that I like, back to screens in this car, is the gauge cluster screen, which frankly is pretty good. You have a lot of configurability in this screen. You can choose what's on different panels of the screen. You can see a map in here. You can basically have it set to show all sorts of different information, whatever it is that you want to see. And you can even choose like how it's displayed. If you want sort of a traditional gauge screen or a more modern or unusual one, you can choose all of that and still adjust exactly which panel shows what, so you can see exactly what you want to see while you're driving along. That's pretty nice to have, and it's in addition to a heads-up display, which is projected onto the windshield in front of you, of course, which is also a great feature to have and adds even more of like a cockpit feel, delivering you all the information you might want at any time. Now, also in this vicinity, on the steering wheel on the left side, you can see the engine start-stop button. You get in the car, press that, and the engine starts. On the other side, you have this little circular button dial. The dial changes the drive mode that you're in, so you can adjust between several different drive modes this car offers. The cooler part of this switch, though, is the center is a button that allows you to turn on sport suspension or off with a quick, simple push. So if you want to go into the sport drive mode or the Corsa high performance mode, you can do that easily and then choose whether you want sport suspension to accompany that with an easy button push. It's nice to see the suspension sort of separated out, since a lot of people like to drive in the performance accelerator and steering, but they want cushy suspension. Here, this car gives you an easy way to dial up that exact drive mode. Now, with all this said, this is still an Italian car. Despite its roots with Stellantis and other brands' technology, it's still Italian, and so it still has some unusual quirks. Like, for example, there are no door handles in this car. Instead, you have this circular button you can see here, and it's a door popper. You push it and the door electronically pops open, and then you can push to open the rest of the way. How about the cup holder, which you can see here is two separate cup holders, unless you have a larger cup. Then you can take out the center section, revealing one larger cup holder for your larger cups. It's actually kind of a neat idea. Here's a quirky one. There's no window switches for the back windows, although they do operate independently from the front windows. So if, for example, you're driving around with the roof down and you want the windows up, you pull the window up switch and nothing happens. That's because it starts by putting the back window up, which takes a few seconds, and only then does it start to put the front window up, which is kind of a weird way to do it instead of just having separate controls for the rear windows. Similarly weird, if you're driving around with the windows up and you want to put them down, you put down the front window all the way, and then, well, you might forget that the back window exists at all. I suspect a lot of people are going to be driving around in this car with the top down, the windows down, and those little back quarter windows up with no idea that they're even up, because you can't really see it from the driver's seat. Now, on to the quality of this interior. I have to say it's pretty nice in here. It's a high quality interior that fits with the price tag of this car. Like I said, this one has a sticker price of around $230,000. Nice material, nice leather. You don't really have any cheap stuff basically anywhere, which frankly is exactly what you'd expect given the price. There's also a couple of nice little touches in this interior that I like. For example, the leather surround on the seatbelt buckle is nice. The belt buckles in these cars are always plastic. It's the way they make them. It's a safety thing. They don't change it, but wrapping it in leather adds a little touch of class to this interior. I also like the little Maserati logo on the side of the dashboard. You won't see this unless the door is open, but when you open the door to get into the car, it is nice to see that little reminder of the Maserati specialness. Now, one drawback of this interior, because this is a fairly long two-door car with back seats, the front doors are big, and so when you open them, closing them can be kind of hard. You got to reach all the way out to close them. But even more difficult is grabbing the seatbelt, which is mounted here, kind of on the first hard point behind the front seats. It's really difficult to reach back there and get it. In a lot of cars, there's a little lever that kind of pushes the seatbelt towards you when the door is open, so you can easily put on the seatbelt. Not the case here, and that's going to be kind of an annoyingly long reach for some of the owners of this car, who I suspect might complain about that ergonomic decision. And next up, we move on to the back, which is actually kind of nice. There's not a lot of room back here, but there's more room than you get in a lot of other similar vehicles like this, and the whole rear seat experience is a fairly nice one, considering that most of the time people won't really be sitting back here. You have individual leather bucket seats with nice stitching and the Maserati logo embossed into the headrest, which looks great, and you also have some other nice touches back here, like individual cup holders. You have your own climate vent for the rear passengers, which is rare in a car like this, and you have two USB ports, one USB-A and one USB-C, for rear passengers to charge their devices. Now, the drawback is that rear passengers don't have any control over the rear windows. Even though these windows operate separately from the front windows, like I mentioned, there's no window switches back here for rear passengers to operate the windows, so they're just sort of stuck at the mercy of whatever the front people do with the windows. Now, one real and obvious drawback to the GranCabrio compared to the coupe model, the Gran Turismo, is trunk space. For one thing, you open up the trunk and you can instantly see that the opening is a lot smaller than it is in the coupe. Just getting stuff back here is going to be a challenge because the trunk is so much smaller because of the convertible top stuff directly on the other side of it. But beyond that, the trunk itself is also considerably smaller. You can see the convertible top mechanism and equipment really intrudes into the trunk space with the top down, and so if you want to roll top down, you're not really going to get a lot of cargo storage in here. There's not a lot of room for bags. Now, when you put the top up, this stuff kind of retreats a little bit, and there is more cargo space in the trunk, but it's still not huge, and you're still contending with the relatively small opening that won't let you put in larger items, in case you wanted to transport a television in your GranCabrio. And speaking of GranCabrio, you can see that is the name. It is badged GranCabrio, and that's a change. The previous Maserati Gran Turismo, which was sold for many years, was sold in the United States as the Gran Turismo, the coupe, or the Gran Turismo Cabriolet, that was the convertible. Now, interestingly, in overseas markets, Maserati sold that car as the Gran Turismo and the GranCabrio, but in the US, they thought we were too stupid, I guess, to understand that GranCabrio was the convertible version of Gran Turismo, and so they didn't call it the GranCabrio here until now. Finally, the Gran Turismo and the GranCabrio have their own separate names like they have in the rest of the world for a long time. And finally, we move on to the overall design of the GranCabrio, which is undoubtedly the weak point of this car. Not because it's ugly, because frankly it isn't. It's a very attractive, nicely proportioned car. The problem is that it looks a lot like the old Gran Turismo and Gran Turismo Cabriolet, which came out for the 09 model year. And you can buy an 09 for like $12,000 with basically the same design as this car. Obviously, this one's been updated, modernized, sculpted for a new era of Gran Turismo, but frankly, it just doesn't look that different than the outgoing model, which is 15 years old at this point. Now, this is especially interesting because Maserati took several years off of selling the Gran Turismo and the convertible in order to dream up a new one. The 2020 through 23 model years, they stopped selling the old one, skipped any Gran Turismo model, and spent time with their heads down redesigning the car for a brand new generation. And then we got this, which after 3.5 years of design work, frankly, looks a lot like the old car. It's really just a shame that it has such a similar appearance to the outgoing model, and I suspect that will have an impact on sales. People are going to look at this and say, that's the new one? And indeed, it has more tech, more power, a lot of other changes, but really not a dramatically distinctive, brand new, head-turning style compared to the Gran Turismo and GranCabrio that they've been selling for years. Nonetheless, it does have a different driving experience, and so now it's time to get behind the wheel of the new GranCabrio and check it out. All right, driving the Maserati GranCabrio. And I gotta tell you, this car is the classic example of a car that doesn't really know what it especially wants to be. Now, car journalists will use that phrasing way too much. It was this and that, and I hate when people say it, but it is appropriate sometimes, and this is one of those rare times when a car is really trying to figure out what is it. So what I mean by that? Well, the engine is this detuned engine from the MC20, a supercar, and it makes big sounds. And the drive modes, it's got Sport, which is I'm in right now, which is harsh. And then it's got Corsa, which is even harsher. It's got these multiple, very aggressive drive modes. But then the design, it's this elegant four-seater kind of luxury car, and it doesn't really have the dynamics to back up the drive modes or the powertrain, which makes sense because it's an elegant four-seater luxury car, and so you wouldn't expect those dynamics. And so you're trying to understand, is this like a luxury GT cruiser car for people who live in Florida and are aging, or is it intended to be a true sports car rival to like a 911 Turbo? And I'm not entirely sure which is best. It's sometimes and others other times, but it's never great at either. And the result of that is that it's pretty expensive without delivering the very best in anything. And then I look at the 911 Turbo Cabriolet, which is a fantastic car, and that does a better job both as a sports car and as a luxury car. It has a nicer interior, it feels like it's better put together, more solid, and then you get to the real problem of the whole thing, which is the Maserati brand name. 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, I made videos where I said this would happen, and now it's happening. After years of hawking lease specials and the cheapest possible Ghiblis and Quattroportes and Levantes, now Maserati wants to still try to sell $230,000 cars, but they've cheapened the brand name. And so the MC20 is not a particularly desirable supercar for most people. And this, at this price point, is especially not tremendously desirable. It's just an expensive car that everybody knows is going to depreciate fast because Maserati doesn't have an enormous amount of brand equity anymore at this segment of the market. And that's what happens when you make those lease specials and when you sell out your brand name in a short-sighted attempt to make good sales numbers. So they're reaping what they sow at this point, basically. And the result of that is that these Gran Turismo models have not been very successful already. This car's been out for a year. The coupe came out first. I never see them. They're never around. The idea of buying a fully brand new ET sticker Maserati is just laughable now, thanks to the damage that Maserati did to its own brand. And I think this car does not make a particularly compelling argument for why you should buy it. It's got less power than rivals, it costs more money than most rivals, and the Maserati brand cannot justify that cost. Now, if you take all this aside and just kind of forget about all of it or most of it, this car is actually pretty nice. It drives surprisingly well as a pseudo-luxury, pseudo-performance car. If I didn't know about the 911 Turbo, I'd say that this has a pretty good everything. It's fast, it steers and handles pretty well, it's fun. It's like a nice, fun car. The technology in here is pretty good. It's not the very best, but it's pretty good. The steering and handling is not so bad for a 4-seat kind of luxury convertible coupe situation. It's not great for a 911 Turbo competitor, but for a Grand Tourer car, it's pretty good. It's a fairly enjoyable car. It is fun. The V6 has decent power. It's, again, good tech, decent luxury. Like, it's not the top in any category, but it's a fairly good compromise in a lot of categories. To me, the drawback is it is not being sold at a compromised price tag. You're paying all the money for a car that is not all the great, even though it does have a lot of nice benefits that I think are worthy of enjoying and driving and experiencing, just maybe not for $230,000. But anyway, it's a decent car, it really is. I just think the price point could be better, the brand name could be more competitive, or they could figure out a way to focus the car a little more, make it more hard-edged, make it more luxury, and don't just sort of be an also-ran in all of those segments. And so that's the 2024 Maserati GranCabrio. I actually like this car. The tech is good, it's fairly luxurious, it looks nice, it drives reasonably well, but for the money, I would take a 911 Turbo every single time. Or a C8 Z06 if I wanted more performance, or an SL or AMG GT if I wanted more tech and luxury. This is a good car, it's just too expensive, and I think it would be a lot better with about 20% off the sticker price, which frankly is where I suspect transaction prices might actually be for these. Anyway, now it's time to give the GranCabrio a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 62 out of 100, which puts the GranCabrio here against rivals dead last. The GranCabrio actually does well in the weekend categories, beating out more pedestrian competitors like the Mercedes-AMG SL63, the BMW M850i, and the Lexus LC. The Maserati is more exciting, more emotional, and just plain cooler, but the price tag is astronomical for what you're getting. The Maserati brand name simply can't command this level of pricing for this type of car, and the styling is just too similar to the old one, which was really old. The GranCabrio and its coupe Gran Turismo sibling is a swing and a miss.